Okay, go ahead. We ready?
Yes, Gilbert.
All right. We'll begin then. Please join your palms and bow. The four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Okay, good evening to you all. To some of you, it's good morning. I want to continue on with the lecture from last week, which was discussing mind work. This is tied to my mind work forum, and I wanted people to understand what was the purpose of setting up a forum that's called Mind Work. And the subtitle to it would be Right View. The idea of right view is that which points to how mind works. When we think about how mind works, we have to separate it out from the idea of the concept of an individual consciousness. There are so many sutras and treatises and commentaries that talk about that this idea of a life and being personality or an ego, there is no consciousness there. This is, we could say it's a consciousness, but it is not in the sense that we think it is, such as a subject and object or perception of a duality in any way. It is what the Yogacaryas had called the eighth consciousness, the Alaya Vijnana. But in the Alaya Vijnana, there is also a reference to it by another name, which is Amala Vijnana. And this Amala Vijnana is just simply the idea that there is this perfected perception. I even hesitate to call it consciousness. And the perception is a perception from omniscience. Omniscience meaning that which is aware of everything else. But this is a very unique type of awareness. The Buddha awareness is not one that is tied to a locale. Thus, that's why Manjusri, when he was explaining where he dwells, he could not say that he dwelled in any particular locale, but he could not say he was not, or the mind was not in any particular locale. Because even in the most tiniest mote of dust that flies by when the windows open on a summer day and you just see this little mote of dust go by, it holds a billion Buddha worlds. And you go, how can that be? How can you even possibly think that way? Quite the soul. It is quite in this way that is inconceivable. When we hear these words, we just shake our heads and we go, I want to believe this, but this sounds like very, very, very difficult for anyone to be able to understand. And you're correct. There is no understanding in it, at least with respect to a sentient being. The sentient being cannot understand it because the sentient being is a dream. And so it does not have the ability to know outside the dream. So suppose you met somebody in your dream and you were sleeping tonight and you have a dream and you ask that person about a dream. Okay. You ask them some information and they would go, how do I know? I'm just a manifestation in your dream. How would I know anything beyond that? You created me. You ask yourself. Interesting, right? So you ask yourself, this is mind work, because then you start looking and saying, okay, well, let's start from the beginning. Who exactly is dreaming? Am I dreaming, or am I a dream? I think the Japanese, they had that wonderful little story about are you dreaming of the butterfly, or the butterfly dreaming of you? But here, it is a dream within a dream. This is our difficulty, is because we don't know that. We don't understand that at all. We can't know that. And as a result of that, we have a confusion as to the world. It is in mind work that we dare to go beyond that. You see, Buddha Dharma is so easy if we just keep our heads stuck in the sand and we just carry on a devotional practice. Buddha, please help me, please. Manjusri, please let me pass the test. I'll even say your mantra 50 times. No, 55 times, maybe more. I want to get more than a passing grade. That's one type of Buddhist practice. Not to do harm to others, this is good practice too. But if we have the thought, I am thinking about this, and I am acting as a dream person within the dream, you can never escape the dream. You never. But you can practice, and you set into motion the roots to be able to hear right view. And then one day, you're here because you heard right view. And you went, bing, something there, something special, something different is calling to you. Why do you think they call it the Dharma drum? Because it's a drum. It's calling to all what we may say illusory sentient beings, but that portion of the Buddha mind that's trapped within this dream. That's the difference. We see things in a different way. We don't cling to the idea that you are going to become enlightened. We practice the practice of awakening the dreamers. So who is dreaming? We do not go far enough when we look at things, because the mind, I would say the illusory mind, the ego, is very, very clever. It goes, of course, everything around us doesn't exist. This cell phone doesn't exist. This cup doesn't exist. Whatever it is, it doesn't exist. And they go, but you don't exist either. No, I don't want to hear that. That's a little bit too drastic. I would just continue to practice and recite the Buddha's name and burn incense. But don't tell me I don't exist, because that scares me. It makes me afraid. I don't understand that, and anything that I don't understand makes me afraid. The ancient masters said that you have to be ready to stand in front of 10,000 enemies to be able to take them down one after another. You have to be there and be able to do that. But we would say, well, maybe 5. After that, I think I would be tired. I'd need a break. But they just keep coming. We don't have that kind of faith. We don't have that virya, that right effort to do it. But if we do have that effort, just like the ancients said, you can cut a hole in the sky with your sword. You can slice the sky. What is that? Try to conceive of slicing open the sky. I will bet you that you cannot conceive of slicing open the sky. Only from the other side would one be able to see the rip in reality. Because we have constructed a cocoon, or we could say an egg, in which we live in, that we believe is the world. And we protect it. We protect everything about the ego in this world. We have the laws of physics that we rely upon. And we see things here. We knock on something and we say, this is solid. And we are comfortable in that. But if we begin to talk about that you don't exist, this is too hard for us to understand. Only the bravest of practitioners can practice right view correctly. They have to have the faith to be able to go beyond. And I've seen in many of you, when you have this faith, what you can do. It's very, very amazing. It is something that nothing can stand before that kind of faith. It is a faith that is beyond a faith in any concept. This is interesting that we have to develop this faith in the purity of things. We don't understand it. We can't even understand, because we can say this world, it is pure, and sometimes it's pure horror. So where is the nobleness in that? Where is the beauty in all of the things there? It is from this dualistic perception that we see sacred and profane. In a dream, if you were being chased by a monster and you were in your pajamas and the monster was scraping at you, you could feel it, and he was tearing your pajamas. When you wake up, you look, but your pajamas are not torn, right? If they're torn, you need to get out of that room really, really fast. Okay. So that has happened, but we're not going to talk about it today. But the thing is that was in the dream. It was pratika samapada, cause and conditions. Whatever you did, maybe you saw some spooky movie or a scary story or whatever before you went to sleep, and so you have this, or you had this a fear of some kind, so you got into a chase dream. But all of that belongs to samsara, which is a dream. It is not real, but it's perfectly appearing in accordance with causes and conditions. This is something that we don't understand. But when we see it, and we see it in the right way, it enables us to be able to function in this world. Our goal is not to leave samsara. Where would we go, really? Do you think that if we left samsara, we could go to a place called nirvana that is outside of samsara? This is a reverse thinking, not the right way to think. When we see the things, we understand that samsara is a viewpoint inside a dream egg. It's not real. We think it's real, and we've created this incredible construction. Now, Matrix is coming back, so I can use the analogies of Matrix again. But this whole thing about a computer and all these things that are manifesting in it, and these false realities that are there. We don't see the things in the as they really, really are. When we use right view, then we are practicing mind work. I call it mind work because it is how mind works, not how samsara works, but it is also includes how samsara manifests. This is important too, is that it manifests not by your will, but as a product of mind and pratika samapada. Our problem is that we believe that we have set into motion this world, that this is our domain, but it isn't really. It's just some illusory defilement, some blips in mind. You could say some kind of an interference in mind that causes something to appear. And we take this appearance to be real. As you begin to practice right view, then you begin to question the idea of the reality of this. I think I said last time, when I began to practice Qigong, I practiced a Qigong called Wei To Qigong, which is, Wei To is a Bodhisattva Dharma protector. And the other name for Wei To is Skanda. Very interesting. And when I began to practice Qigong, I knew very little about Buddhism. I just knew they had some really scary looking statues, one with a red face, and Guanggong, and another one that was very stern with a sword, Wei To. And I did not understand anything about Buddhism, but one of the mantras that I was taught, I didn't even know it was a mantra, began, what appears to be real is not real, and what appears to be not real is real. You have to consider this. To me, I thought it was such a cool saying. I had no idea what it meant, but it is very, very incredible. It's so deep, because we think this world is real, that you are watching Gilbert give a lecture, but it's a dream. It's probably, now an 8K dream, very clear, but in any case, it's something that is a dream nonetheless. But we do not know that which cannot be said to be unreal, that's real, which is the inconceivable. Sometimes it is called the unconditioned. The unconditioned is the mind that is uncreated. It's not born. It does not die, does not increase or decrease. It is just the way it is. And within that is not to the exclusion of samsara, but to the explanation of samsara. You see the difference? You're not trying to escape from samsara. What are you escaping from? Anybody know? I know you're thinking, oh, this is Gilbert's Chan trick question again. It's very, very simple.
The self.
The self?
Ignorance.
I'm sorry,
dream.
Rachel, what'd you say?
Ignorance?
Ignorance. The prodigal daughter
Suffering.
returns. Good to see you, Rachel. What did you say, Vadim?
Suffering.
Suffering. The suffering comes from the ignorance. So what we're escaping from is that which binds us, which is fundamentally ignorance. And by the way, I've known Rachel for many, many years when she was just a pup. She still looks like a pup, but she was one of my youngest students to come, and she has a very good, sound foundation in Buddha Dharma. So it is this ignorance that we have to pierce through. The ignorance is what keeps us in the dream. Without ignorance, then everything is perfectly in its place. It is precisely in its place. That's why they say it is precisely empty. It's perfect in its emptiness. David was talking about pure faith or the purity of things, and it is this purity of this. But when we have this pure faith, then pure mind will manifest. If we have doubts, it will not manifest. So we have to turn the mind's eye inward, no longer see this place as a place that we have to depart. I assure you that sooner or later, this physical body will depart. But that doesn't mean that your mind will die because it was never born. We don't know that. We don't understand that at all. I wish we did. I wish we really could understand that, but we don't. We have to penetrate and push forward, have the faith and the right effort, and it will work. And then we will see this world for what it is. I want to read to you a few things concerning this topic, kind of almost random. This is from the Zen teachings of Huang Po, which should say Chan teachings of Huang Po. It says the ephemeral may be likened to mere emptiness. The great void is perfection, wherein is neither lack nor superfluidity, a uniform quiescence in which all activity is still. So it's something that we see that is, it doesn't lack, or it is not constantly changing. It is just what it is. And the stillness is the thusness of mind. The thusness of mind is the eradication of ignorance. When there is no ignorance, mind will naturally manifest. It has always been there. It was just seemingly covered by illusory clouds. Do not argue that there may be other regions lying outside the great void, for such an argument would inevitably lead to discrimination. Therefore, it is written, perfection is the deep sea of wisdom. Samsara is like a whirling chaos. If we hold on to the samsaric appearances, we're stuck in a whirling chaos. One that Ling Chi said that if you're stuck with this and being blown by the wind this way and blown by the wind that way, then when it's time for you to depart this world, you will not know where to go. And then he continued with his admonition that you may end up in the belly of a donkey or a cow, meaning that you may be reborn in the animal realm. And he said that to scare people into thinking about where they're born. And it's so difficult. I have two pets, two dogs, and I'm always talking to them. And I'm going, next lifetime, you can't be so greedy. You can't try to hog all the food, or you can't bite, or you can't make so much noise, or whatever. And they just look at me like, and, I feel so sorry for them. But I vow to deliver them before myself. Once Shifu was by the ocean with some of his students, and the students were uh, found a stray dog, and the dog followed them wherever they went to when they were by the beach. And so finally they said, Shifu, this dog does not have an owner. Perhaps we can take it home to the center. And so Shifu's just like, and they went, yeah, Shifu, you could teach it the Dharma. And Shifu said, it's hard enough for me to teach you the Dharma, much less a dog. And so I nevertheless try to teach the Dharma to my dogs and to whatever animals are there, but it's difficult to do so. They have their own karma, and but we try to do that and set that into motion, so the next time they will perhaps have a better rebirth. And you go, well, what does it matter? Well, it still matters, even if it's illusory. They're still caught up in some kind of a dream. It matters to mine. It may not matter to Gilbert, but it matters to mine. That is bodhicitta. That's what distinguishes Buddha Dharma from a nihilistic approach, that nothing matters, there's nothing beyond, there's nothing exists, there's no supreme being, there's no nothing. Buddha Dharma and the concept of the Buddha, it works very well as long as you don't try to elevate an appearance to be the Buddha. When we do this, we lose the proper viewpoint, and we confuse the statues on our altar to be the Buddha. The statues are reminders of us of our practice, and that's what's important with them. And we give them deep, deep respect. This is the devotional aspect of the Buddhist practice. I do not say that one should not be devotional. Quite to the contrary, I believe devotion is very important in the practice. But pure devotion without right view will not lead to a great realization or an awakening, because we're still bound by the samsaric world. We have to use our practice to be able to go beyond the samsaric world. This is not easy for us at all, because we have endured so much habitual tendencies that it's difficult. It feels as if we are swimming up the river against the current. But little by little, as we begin to swim, we find that by turning the mind's eye inward, that our viewpoint from before was opposite. And our idea of swimming against the current, in fact, was erroneous. So that we are now able to understand that we are, in fact, in harmony with the ocean. Once that way, it is called, then you are a non-returner. You will not return to this world, at least not return as an ignorant sentient being. You return out of choice from your vow. And that's a big difference. When we talk of the knowledge I may gain, learning I may achieve, my intuitive understanding, my deliverance from rebirth, and my moral of living, our successes make these concepts seem pleasant to us, but our failures make them appear deplorable. What is the use of all of that? I advise you to remain uniformly quiescent and above all activity. Do not deceive yourselves with conceptual thinking, and do not look anywhere for the truth. For all that is needed is to refrain from allowing concepts to arise. It is obvious that the mental concepts and external perceptions are equally misleading, and that the way of the Buddhas is as dangerous to you as the way of the demons. Thus, when Manjusri was temporarily entered into dualism, he found himself dwarfed by the two iron mountains. I've been talking about this recently in other classes. Between the two iron mountains of and looking at things in this way, exist or not exist, and on which made egress impossible. But Manjusri had true understanding, while Samantabhadra possessed only ephemeral knowledge. Nevertheless, the true understanding and ephemeral knowledge are properly integrated, it will be found that they no longer exist. There is only one mind, which we refer to as ekayana, mind which is neither Buddha nor sentient beings, for it contains no such dualism. As soon as you conceive of the Buddha, you are forced to conceive of sentient beings, or of concepts and no concepts, of vital and trivial ones, which will surely imprison you between those two iron mountains. So this idea of what the ancient masters were saying was echoing ekayana from the early Mahayana scriptures, and then beyond, all the way through to the Tathagata Garbha Sutras of discussing ekayana and putting meat on the bones of this ekayana and emptiness. When we pared everything down to empty, some people didn't quite understand that. And they said everything is empty. But it isn't in this way. It's interesting because I've been contemplating the scene of Manjusri and Vilamakritti when Manjusri went to pay a call on Vilamakritti. And he was, as he entered Vilamakritti's home, everything had no doors, no nothing, no ceiling, no nothing. There was just a bed with Vilamakritti there. And this was this emptiness that was there. But if it was true emptiness, not even Vilamakritti and his bed would be there. The difference was that in this emptiness still possesses, I hate to say possesses, but in its nature, it is the Buddha nature. And this Buddha nature is its own meaning. It is the primary meaning. And it is why Vilamakritti manifested there rather than him talking to this room with nothing there. Why? Because Vilamakritti represented how we should look at the samsaric world. Could you do that? When you're walking around and you see everything as a dream, it is the same as what Manjusri saw when he walked into Vilamakritti's home. He saw everything was a dream. So because it's a dream, it has no substance beyond mind. So everything was reflected as mind. This is not something that you can understand. You have to contemplate. You have to feel it from the heart. This is the esoteric aspect of the Buddha Dharma. This is not something that is written. It is 3 feet beyond the sutra that you're reading. This is mind work. You have to see things in this way. When I say see things, you have to use the perception of mind to see this. And then you begin to understand this. Even as I'm talking to you about this, I've been contemplating this for many days. And only right now do I truly go beyond the conceptual understanding of why that room appeared the way it did. Not just that he made it appear that way, but the fundamental esoteric meaning of that, looking at the world in this way, as everything is fundamentally empty. This is very important to us in terms of our development as practitioners, but not just practitioners. Hearing this precious esoteric aspect of the practice, you have to be able to go beyond that and to understand that this is too precious for you to have for your own self, that this is something that you must use on your own behalf to present it to others. Okay.
Gilbert,
Yes.
it's like Vimalakirti was saying, you say that phenomena are empty. I show that phenomena are empty.
Yes. So you're catching now the meaning of that. So that's, you see, it's very interesting, because all of a sudden the words take on a totally different meaning, even though you listen to the words and you heard them and you go, oh yeah, I understand. But no, you don't understand. You have to see it and reverse it and mull it in your mind and say, there's more here than that. And it is why the one sutra was called the demonstration of the inconceivable state of Buddhahood, Manjusri's sutra, because it's a demonstration of it, not that there is expounding on it. There is a difference with that, and that's what makes things change. Okay. And that's a part that's very, very important when we see this. Let me see. This is from the Avatamsaka Sutra. And just somebody's commentary on it. And it says that I'll kind of paraphrase it to a certain extent. The right view of the text is that it expresses the universe as seen by a Buddha, and they say Dharma Dhatu, who sees all phenomena as empty and thus infinitely interpenetrating. From the point of an enlightenment, the interpenetration is described in the Vatamsaka as the perception that feels full assemblies, the beings and the eons, which are as many as the dust particles, are all present in every particle of dust. Thus, the Buddha's view of reality is also said to be inconceivable. No sentient being can fathom it. And it says that Professor Paul Williams notes that the sutra speaks of both Yogacara and Madhyamika doctrines, stating that all things are empty of inherent existence, and also of a pure, untainted awareness, as the and they say alma chitta, which is related to the alma vijnana, as the ground of all phenomena. the Avatamsaka Sutra also highlights the visionary and mystical power of attaining the pure wisdom which sees the nature of the world. And in this, what it's saying is we abandon individual conceptual thinking in order to accept this universal Buddha mind, which is inseparable, and its nature is one in which it is tied to all to everything, even to the tiniest mote of dust. There cannot be said something to be outside, like Master Huang Po was saying. If you try to say something is outside of that, then there's a discrimination, there's a duality. So it is using, in part, worldly logic to take you as far as it can go, to say that everything is within mind. But the big twist here is that mind is infinite. So if something was to try to stretch beyond mind, hold on, sorry, I lost the video. If something was to stretch beyond mind, then that mind would expand to cover that. And even the sutras talk about this, say if mind expands this, or if phenomena expands this much, mind expands that much. So, and the very simple story of the Monkey King, Sharon Kong, is an example of that anything phenomenal, anything that conceptual, that somebody could think of, some physicist that could come up with some formula to add infinite number of zeros onto something to say how far of a distance it is, mind would still be there. It would have to be there in order for the zeros to appear. It could not appear any other way, because you have to think about this. Every piece of phenomena cannot independently reflect or project itself. It doesn't have that kind of energy to do that. If it did, it would be two minds. But it isn't in this way. It has to rely on the power of mind itself in order for it to appear. Sometimes it's just a very dim bulb. Other times it's a brilliant flash. It doesn't matter. The thing is that whatever appears, mind is surely there. We have to be clear about this. And when we are, then it makes things much more understandable. This is not easy because we're working with mind work. We're working without a net. There's nothing there to support us. But being that there's nothing there to support us is the point. Because once we slip into the void, we're clear that everything is mind. And while this does not stop appearances from coming, overall, the appearances can change for the better based on the power of the vow. The more sentient beings that come to a realization, the better this world will come to. This is why Master Sheng had this great wish of the Pure Land on earth. Having this great wish of a Pure Land on earth is very, very important, because when we have a Pure Land on earth, it enables us to set a great ground for the cultivation of Buddha Dharma. So don't think that all we want to do is just get rid of the world. What we want to do is set into motion that part of the practice that enables the environment to be a positive one for the practice of Buddha Dharma, the correct right view Buddha Dharma. This kind of ties into yesterday's lecture too. This is from the book called Understanding the Mind, the Nature and Power of the Mind. It comes from the Tibetan side. The way to overcome doubts about our spiritual practice is to gain a thorough understanding of our practice through study, discussion, and relying upon a qualified spiritual guide. And this is very, very important, that we, in our practice, we gain a thorough understanding through study, through discussion, and relying on what I would call a well-knowing advisor. This is very, very important. It's very difficult for somebody to be on their own and develop this kind of a practice by themselves. That would be like a Pratita Buddha, which is someone that develops an understanding of the dependent nature of things, but without any kind of training. What they lack then is the power of the vow or the bodhicitta. The discussing, joining in the discussion group, joining into lecture group, asking questions. That's why I always tell you, please ask questions. You know, don't be afraid to ask questions. You should ask questions. You should challenge it. You know, use me as your own mind to bounce things off and to do that. Sometimes, you know, I talk to people about things because I need a sounding board to do that. And sometimes the people kind of understand and they're with me. Other times they're just going, yeah, that sounds good, but I just need somebody to talk to. So don't think that you don't need somebody to talk to. Don't think that you shouldn't have questions. You should have a lot of questions. In particular, we can speedily resolve the doubts of developing quick wisdom. So quick wisdom is one of the 7 types of wisdom. It enables us to answer our own questions as soon as they arise. If we possess quick wisdom, we shall never become burdened with unanswered questions of our faith. Quick wisdom acts like a spiritual guide who has always been there to answer our questions and to give us good advice. When we read books, quick wisdom enables us to immediately understand the meaning. If due to imprints of wrong views, deluded doubts start to arise, quick wisdom immediately recognizes them and averts them. And I would say the quick wisdom here within the Chan school context is right view. It is a viewpoint that is not born of samsara, not born of cogitation, not even born of Buddha Dharma. It is born, it's not born, it is the inconceivable mind of Buddha, not the Buddha, but the Buddha mind. And so when we use this helps us. Now, this particular author says the powerful method for developing quick wisdom is to use the seed letter of Manjushri, the letter D. And we talked about this yesterday morning. To do this, we visualize the root of our tongue as orange colored letter D, which is in essence the quick wisdom of Manjushri, and invite the quick wisdom of all the Buddhas in aspect to the many letter Ds to dissolve into the D at the root of our tongue. Then light radiates from the D and fills our entire body. Each atom of this light is the letter DE. And so our whole body is filled with D. We recite D as many times as possible in one breath, and then together with a little saliva, swallow the letter D at our tongue. This dissolves into our root mind at heart, and we imagine our mind transforms into a quick wisdom of all Buddhas. If we practice this with a strong faith early in the morning each day, we shall definitely develop quick wisdom. And this again comes from the Tibetan school, but I think what's important here is whether you would practice this practice or not. It is one that points to a sincerity and the reliance on mind itself. This is something that is very, very important, this reliance on mind, because this reliance is one in which we do not rely on an ego or personality, life and being, any kind of duality. But we abandon any kind of conceptual activity. And so in this way, I think that Chan right view is still superior to this method. Chan right view doesn't rely on appearances or conjuring of appearances. The power in what this master is saying in terms of the DE is simply to summon up what the ancient Chan master said, to develop power from our own inherent power. We all have the seed of the Buddha mind in this sentient being. Even though the sentient being is a dream, within the sentient being, nevertheless, embodies the Buddha mind. It has to. Even though it's illusory, transient, it is still appearing on mind as a reflection. And in this way, it could be said to be from the very fabric of mind. When we understand this and we apply that to the present moment, moment to moment to moment to moment, it changes the way that we see the world. We see the world then as pratika samappada. We see the world as something that we are mindful of what we do in the next moment. Do we waste this moment? Do we spoil this moment? Do we add something that is more, how would you say, constructive? Do we clean the environment or do we pollute it? This is very, very important. So we have to be mindful moment to moment about what we do through body, speech, and mind. This is right view. It's right view using the Buddha mind. Does that make you a Buddha? Not in the sense of Buddha Dharma, it doesn't make you Buddha, but you've never been apart from that, from the very, who would say whenever this began? We cannot say when it began. It has always been there. This mind that you're using is unborn, uncreated. When this body has breathed its last, that mind will not have died. It will not have been born again. We can set in motion in mind to come back to the dream. But we know that this is a dream. This is the difference. This is very, very important for us, that we have to have this kind of a faith. This faith in mind, the faith that this mind is pure. The dream is nasty sometimes, very, very bad. All sorts of different hate, all sorts of ignorance that's in this world. So much. Why would we want to remain in this world as a sentient being, if not for the purpose of delivering other sentient beings, of awakening? Then there's a purpose to living. If not, there is no purpose. It is just an endless round of birth and death, birth, suffering, death, all the way through. Shakyamuni Buddha understood that from the very beginning. Even before he was enlightened, he saw old age, sickness, and death, that it troubled him. Why? Why are these things here? How do they come about? How do they come about? I want to know. So then he tried to use the ascetic way of doing it, of depriving him of things, until he realized that all that did was just cause bodily suffering or pain or discomfort, or that you got used to suffering, until he realized middle way. He was the one that really brought Madhyamika, the middle ground. Be not so content with this world, nor see this world as some kind of a negative element. Just understand. We have to understand that, but it is difficult for us to understand this without a realization. So we work towards that. That is, we work towards the noble mind by using the noble mind. That's how you do it. You get used to practicing the noble mind. I've said many times that the noble mind, moment to moment to moment, is yours to lose. In one moment, the Buddha is present. In the next moment, ignorance is present. Discrimination, desires are present. Vexations are present. We choose. And if we choose with the right view, then we're doing mind work. We're practicing from the Buddha side. We're not trying to grasp and aspire to grab to something. We're using what we already have. We're using Buddha mind. It's already within each and every one. And if you use it, it will pay off. If you practice, and simply practice by using the four great vows, the 5 precepts, 6 paramitas, the Eightfold Path, 37 factors of enlightenment, this is a secondary source to the practice. Doesn't mean you don't use those. Of course you use them, but you have to understand that those are a reflection of the Buddha mind. If you maintain Buddha mind, these will naturally be reflected in your body, speech, and mind. It's simple. It's yours to lose moment to moment. That's why it's so important that you remember to practice, you remember to do this. It is not that you're trying to polish the self or the ego or trying to be delivered in this mind. You see things as they are. This maintaining thusness of mind will enable you to penetrate through. When you sit to meditate, you use this mind, this Buddha mind. Everything appears in mind perfectly. All discriminations, all vexations, all what seemingly endless thoughts arising when you're meditating, it is okay. They're in mind. Where do you want to brush them out to? All you have to do is just let them be. Don't chase after them. Just sit with the stillness. You know that they're arising. It's wonderful. You can see all of these thoughts arising. You don't have to worry about that they're there. Are you still there? Yeah, I'm still there. Oh my God, I want you to go away. No, you don't have to do that. This is the wrong way to meditate. The right way is just sit. If you do that, it's like you're just sitting at a bus station. The Buddha bus is going to come and absorb you. It's simple. But if the Buddha bus comes and you're there swatting thoughts, it's just going to go right by. You're going to say, I think I saw something, but I don't know. No, you conceptualized about it. You have to have the faith. Just sit. It will, on its own, will naturally appear. Okay. So that's kind of where you're at with that. So that is the conclusion for today. I don't know if I got to the end or the beginning of mind, work, and right view, but thank you for listening. Om. We have questions. Go ahead, Rongchen.
Gilbert, the question is, I kind of try to figure out what's the difference between Mahayana and the Theravada in using the perfect Buddha mind. I think that I feel that is the difference, how they apply their mind. I mean, they are not going anywhere. I mean, Mahayana, the Theravada, I don't know where they hide. How could tell them they are hiding? Well, Mahayana, yes, they always come back to the sentient beings, even though they know this sentient being is a dream, but they still take the dream as real because people take it real.
Fundamentally, Theravadans are still a Buddhist practice. Their emphasis is different. It could be, we could say, the difference between a Christian and a Catholic, where the Christians are just praising God, but the Catholics, they also embrace the Virgin Mary and this unbridled compassion that the Virgin Mary represents. We, in our way of practice, are similar to that. I'm not saying we're doctrinally the same, but I'm just using that as an analogy that we have through the practice. What the Mahayana Sutras say is there is a maturation of the practice. Maturation means a maturing of the practice, and I believe that the Mahayana doctrine continued on beyond what the Theravadins said, where they just said this is what the Buddha taught. Anything over here is not Buddha doctrine, not Buddha Vikana. But I think they miss the emphasis on the karuna. Even though karuna does exist in their Abhidharma, it is something that, and they use it, but they don't emphasize it as much, where the development of the bodhisattva as a trait of sentient beings, this inherent characteristic in sentient beings, as well as the inherent as is embodied by Buddha nature. The Buddha nature is not just simply a Buddha nature of an uncaring. The Buddha nature goes so far over to almost to being a monistic thought of where philosophers start to begin to point at the Tathagata Garbha Sutras and say, aha, I see, you guys are monistic. You believe in one God, one Buddha, but it's not that way. And the Tathagata Garbha Sutras don't take it that far. It is because the philosophers and the scholars are still ignorant as to what Buddha nature, I can't even say stands for, the thusness of Buddha nature. And that is the difference, Rongchen, that in the approach is that the Theravadins, they don't accept that kind of a Buddha nature that has this ability to have this great compassion, and don't accept it in their practice. It doesn't mean that they're completely wrong or they're bad or whatever. They're just a different approach to it. And if you practice in their way, it's a beneficial practice. I'm not one that says, if you're a Theravada, if you don't practice this way, you're going to hell. like some Christian doctrine, people will say only ours are this way, and so that's not the right way. I don't want to cause a a, a schism between the two. I would rather find the harmony like Shifu did, in terms of finding the harmony between the Theravadans and Mahayana schools. But yes, I understand what you're saying, and I think you're beginning to see, doctrinally, at least, the difference between the two schools. And it is evidenced by Sariputra the elder, because Theravada is the study of the elders, and young Manjushri. And so that's why he's most often depicted as being young. There are some exceptions where he's depicted as being older, but he's generally depicted, especially in the early Mahayana sutras, the Prajnaparamita sutras, he's depicted as the youthful Manjushri. Because it's representing a new way of thought and approach to Buddha Dharma. So your question is very good. Thank you. Okay, who was next, David or Esther? David?
Oh, thank you, Gilbert. I wanted to ask about, I'm not going to ask about thusness of mind, but you mentioned that it's the eradication of ignorance. And I guess I'm still pretty fascinated about nascent entrenchment. So is this what you're really talking about? Is it more of a subtle kind of ignorance, or?
Nascent entrenchment is this entrenchment of ignorance that is, you could say, if you're talking about a computer, it is a virus within the central processing unit itself. So it is not just simply a virus in a program or affecting programs. It is in the central processing unit. It's dug down that deep in to get that far. And as a result of it, this ignorance is difficult to root out, because you get to a point, and there's some very, very good commentaries on illumination of the mind and the process, and showing the last vestiges of ignorance as one is practicing and pursuing a sincere practice of that's reaching some form of a realization, and where the ego hides. And using analogies, and I use those kinds of analogies as well. The easiest ones is the idea of the where it, oh, sorry, my brain fried for a moment. Unified mind, where people believe with unified mind that they've reached some form of an enlightening experience, but it's still not there. It is the ego that has tricked you into doing that. So you look and say, "Are you still there?" And it goes, "Shh, I don't hear anything. I'm not there." Okay, I'm everywhere. Oh, okay. And so, but beyond that, that's still not nescient entrenchment. Nescient entrenchment could be like an overlay, like, let's say, a clear acrylic sheet overlay over everything, that you believe it's gone, but it's still there. And we have to use this deep prajnaparamita, this deep wisdom, to be able to break through. But we have to connect that deep prajnaparamita wisdom with karuna, with this idea of compassion. If we have this idea of compassion towards all sentient beings, it can break through those things. It can shatter those iron mountains that Master Wang Po was talking about, that Manjushri shattered, of duality. but it is there, and it's very, very subtle. So that's where you should put your contemplation on. Okay. Okay, Esther.
Hi, Gilbert. I just want to check on my understanding. The fabric of mind, is it the same as mind ground and Dharmakaya? I'm just a bit puzzled. Thank you.
I know this is one that you've always been talking to me about, you know. We could see it like the Dharmakaya, like this, and it's constantly moving. But whatever we see in mind is this wave like that. And this is the mind ground. Now, obviously, we're looking at this, and it's a three-dimensional thing where mind is beyond dimensions. But we use that kind of an idea like that to say that everything that's appearing, my voice, the concepts, your thought, everything is a fabric of the mind. There's no place that Esther has an individual isolated ego that can process this. This is a dream, talking to a dream about a dream. And we just keep using this and using this in this way. But we don't use it in the sense of a nihilistic. So it's important. But to answer your question, it is that way. It is the fabric of the mind. This primary meaning. I just think I found my book on Fayen and his talking about what mind is, and I had mentioned the other day what is the primary meaning of mind. And it's mind. And so we get to a point which is indivisible, cannot be cut. So when we use even the idea, the notion of Manjusri with a sword that cuts, we have to be clear as to what is being cut. And so this fabric of mind is not the fabric of conceptual thinking. It is the fabric that enables everything to appear. So for instance, if I take this and I cut it in this way, unless I'm one of those great magicians, you know, that you see on America Got Talent, you know, I cannot put this back together again. But in mind, I can. In fact, it was never torn. It is just a dream that the paper was torn. And then you see it, and then you go, oh, you know, there it is again with no tears. And you go, how did that happen? No. But the thing is that we just see things from this viewpoint, from right view. So keep asking that question. Keep asking it, because that's a turning phrase for you. Okay. That's very, very important. You have to look at it, because to understand the Dharmakaya is very, very important. When I say to understand it, I don't mean it to understand it conceptually, to realize it. If you really can realize Dharmakaya, when I say realize it, is to experience it by mind absorption. It is not that Esther is experiencing it and she's going, oh, I feel this Dharmakaya, it's all over me. It feels so wonderful and warm and fuzzy. It's not that way. It is the experience, a direct experience of being absorbed. And then you'll feel the waves. Okay, which leads me to a question for you. What did the ocean say to the beach? Nobody knows. Nothing, it just waved. It just waved. I can see Chinese don't get the humor. Okay. Changwen shit.
Thank you,
Go ahead.
Gilbert.
Amito.
Just checking the idea and understanding about the true mind. Is that the case that it's simply because we are so obsessed with the body and our thinking, then we lost the true mind?
Yes, the ignorance is that there is a mind that belongs to this body. And as a result of that, we create images around that. We have the ability, because of mind, to create a myriad of images. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them are hateful, some of them are compassionate. In this world these days, there seems to be more horrible things than good things. But we can turn that around, but we don't see that as being an individual ego, personality, or life and being. We understand that which moves this body, that makes this mouth go up and down, is not other than the Buddha mind. When we begin to see things from this viewpoint, it changes what comes out of our mouth, what we think about, and what we do. Because everything there then is predicated on harmonizing with whatever states that are arising in that moment. That's what one of the masters said. The practice of Chan is to harmonize with whatever mental states are arising in that moment. Not mental states here, but the mental state of the environment. The environment that we see is only the mind environment. There's no other place where this world appears at. You have to think about that. And when you think about it, you contemplate it and think, how does this all appear? Now, if we say, oh, I'm here and okay, I know I can use a stapler or I can drink or I can do all of these things, but where are they appearing? Where did they appear? How did they get here? And that is what Shakyamuni Buddha with the 12 Nidanas explained. Unfortunately, most of the people went, What did he say? I don't know. It's too deep for me. So then he said, the Four Noble Truths. You suffer, right? Oh, I suffer. Good. All right. Then you know that the cause of suffering is because of the ego. Oh, so then the people understood that and outgo the 12 Nidanas because people don't understand what they are. The dependent origination. But if we go back to the Shakyamuni's original teachings, he's giving us the schematic of how things appear in this dream world. We could not understand that, so he just gave us like you feed a little baby abandoned bird with an eyedropper. Here's a drop. You're almost already choking on that. But right view just takes you and just throws you into the ocean. So this is the way that you should practice. Don't be afraid of the ocean. Okay. So you're in the ocean already, so you just wave. Okay. Hopefully that helps you a little bit. But it's a good question. Very, very good question.
It's the ocean meet the beach.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Harry.
Yeah, before the ocean wave, when it said to the beach, I'm sure glad to see you.
Oh.
Just, I think you also you have to distinguish, going back to what Ron was asking about the doctrine. I think it's important to distinguish doctrine from people, because there are many, I started out in Theravada teachings. I'm a confirmed Mahayanist, but there are some really wonderful Theravada teachers out there who are very undoctrinaire. I mean, Jack Kornfield, Joseph Goldstein, they speak about Zen, they speak about Tibetan, Western philosophy. And then there are these great scholars like Thanissaro Bhikkhu and Bhikkhu Bodhi. I wouldn't want to go up against them in a debate. So even though I think what you're saying, I think is very important. It's really good to distinguish, but then, you know, even we don't even want to get caught up in right view, right?
Well, that's the part, and Harry, you're right, and that's exactly what the one master was saying is that we don't get caught up even in the absolute, and that's what actually he's just parroting what speaking of parrots, I don't see the parrot around here. He's parroting the Nagarjuna, and what Nagarjuna, you know, didn't take a position on for the proper reason. And so that's important. We don't hold on to any particular doctrine, and I'm not talking about doctrine, I'm talking about practice, and that's important, you know. And so whenever you present this, make sure to all of you that you present this as practice. Okay, I don't have a bone to pick with Theravadans, and I'm not afraid of discussing with Theravadans, but I'm not looking for a fight with them. I'm looking for harmony with them, and that's important. And you're right. There's that's why I say there's good people there. You know, they have their different views in terms of the doctrine, you know, and it's kind of a tomato type of a thing. But I think the tomato is a little tastier. Okay, Wendy.
Thank you. Okay. My question is about the okay, so who's reciting Buddha's name, or who's then who knows who's reciting Buddha's name? So then I'm just trying to understand. Well, you said you can never understand, but still I'm trying. Is that mind who knows who's reciting Buddha, or is that Buddha nature? Like, just help me with this. Thank you.
Who is reciting the Buddha's name?
I won't dare to say me, but still, I'm still there.
Who is it? Who? This is important. You need to know this. You have to keep. You want to find that out. Shifu said this is like a sweet taffy candy stuck on your throat. It's sweet and tasty, but yet you want to resolve it. Who? If you just have to keep asking it. And if you can't, then go to the lamppost and ask the lamppost to tell you. The lamppost will tell you. You can't miss it because it's where all the light's at. Who indeed? Who is reciting the Buddha's name? Don't you want to know that? Like really, really know that? Who? You take it and you who? You really choke it. Demand the answer. Demand it. Don't do anything. You just, when you're brushing your teeth, who. When you're walking, who. When you're preparing a meal, who. When you're cleaning up, who. When you're getting ready for bed, who. When you're sleeping, who. When you wake up, who. You need to know. Ask and ask and ask. Don't let it get away. Later, it will not let you get away. If you want to take a rest, it'll say, no, who? You need to respond to this. You need to answer this. Who? This is the practice. Okay? You have a good sincerity, so you'll get there. Where? Who knows? The shadow. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we have Lei Hui. Is that how you pronounce your name?
That's right. Hi, Gilbert. But I think there was there's one other participant who raised her hand first.
Oh, somebody else did?
Yeah.
Oh,
Maybe-
I didn't see
Okay,
one, but
shaking her head now.
we'll get
Okay.
to him. It's okay.
So actually, I get very nervous every time you talk about Manjushri's flaming sword. And I've heard you over a few sessions and you keep mentioning it. And you always ask, what does it represent? What does it cut? And I hope I'm getting the right answer. I've been contemplating, but I'm not sure. Because you talk about the sword cutting away the Buddha, and that concepts are just concepts, you know. So if you were to ask that question again, I hope I have the right answer, and I need you to help me there, which is, so we should not be too hung up on theories or concepts, but really put things into practice. And that is where you keep talking about the mind, right? How we kind of cultivate the mind and make sure we get away from ignorances and vexations and so on. So is that what you're really driving at, or what the sword really represents?
Did you ask the lamppost?
No. You know, I wanted to say that I'm probably still staring at the lamppost. I'm not sure if I got it. Yeah.
I would recommend you keep asking, keep looking. Okay. And you're welcome to come back and state that, even if it takes 2 kalpas. So, but yeah, just keep, this is good. This is what we call a turning phrase. A turning phrase is something that that sticks to you. You don't know why, but it was intentional on my part to ask the question about what does a sword cut? And you were caught up in that, which is good. This is precisely what I wanted, is that those who have a good root in the practice will pick up on that and go, then what does it cut? Because if it cuts this way or cuts that way, or it's this, and it's flaming, it's a flaming sword, which is represents a primordial Buddha appearance of a flame. So what is it cutting? And what does Manjushri? So you just keep going and contemplating this and trying to see it in your mind's eye. Okay, keep doing that. Your potato is not cooked completely yet. Okay, so later on, I will stick a chopstick in to see if it's soft in the center or not. Okay, just keep working on it. Good work though. This is good work. Okay, go ahead. Uh-oh, you unmute yourself, please. You have to unmute.
Okay.
Oh,
so,
good.
Yeah, Sansa, would you mind able the chat? So I will send a little verse. Thank you. Because I like to double check about the teaching, because we had just discussed about the Mahayana and the Theravada. And in the Mahayana tradition, I learned this reflection about unconditioned, unborn, unoriginated, and uncreated, unformed is from the Amaravati Ajahn Chah's tradition. And I like to double check, is this the nature of the mind and how the Mahayana describe the true mind? The unborn, unconditioned, unoriginated, uncreated, unformed, like intellectually. Of course, in practice, we need to get to rest the mind completely to realize this. But intellectually, is this the similar teaching? Thank you.
that's why I had mentioned the unconditioned, the uncreated, and in I think the Hawaiian school they talk about noumenon and phenomena. So the noumenon is the mind ground. The phenomena, nevertheless, is appearing in the mind ground, but it is the noumenon that enables the phenomena to appear. This is very important. They are not two things, they're not even one. It is just the thusness of the Buddha nature. That's why we engage in mind work, so that we can begin to place our practice within the Buddha mind. So all of these terms are terms that are referring to the function of the mind, not as much as a definition of the mind, but the function of it and how it works. So when we talk about the uncreated, it is that mind ground which enables images to appear upon it, which we call reflections of the mind. It's not separate. It is the fabric of the mind that is appearing, and it can only appear in accordance with causes and conditions of the mind itself, the Dharmakaya. Sometimes I say anything that moves is conditioned. So when we sit to meditate, we don't move. It's not, I don't move this way. We don't move in mind. We just allow the mind to be there. Whatever is appearing is dynamically appearing, and we don't have to send it out. We don't have to create any images or anything. It is just this way. The more we dwell on not dwelling, then the mind will present realizations of its nature. And little by little, those realizations of its nature will break down the idea that there is this ego, personality, or life and being, because it will be seen as an appearance rather than the uncreated. But we create in our mind the uncreated. And you go, Gilbert, oh yeah, Gilbert, he's enlightened. Don't quote me on this. Anybody's going to say Gilbert said he was enlightened. Gilbert said he was enlightened. How do you know? Because I'm enlightened. I mean, but that's me creating the idea of enlightenment. That's not the way it is. So we have to contemplate and have this mind of non-dwelling. But the difference is, if we had a non-dwelling mind, we could literally be an idiot in this world. But it is the karuna and the vow that serves as the functional aspect of the mind. These are not just one, it is where the one returns to. So it's very interesting. I'm so happy with the questions that are coming up, because this is exactly what we need to work on with mind work, is this kind of an understanding that we're going from the other side. When we go from the other side, then we see things just as they are. And it changes the world completely. All of a sudden, everything that appears is mind. But we understand the two aspects of mind, the knowing mind and the mind ground. What we talked about before, of the Ru Zi and the Ru Jing, turning to Ru Ru. It is just the thusness of mind, and that they're not one, two. They are just the thusness of mind. This is not easy for us to do, but little by little, as we begin to have a sentient understanding of it, then that sentient understanding enables us to be able to practice in a manner in which the mind is liberated from the notion of an ego, a personality, or a life and being, which is very important. So that's why the right view is such a key. So thank you very much for your question. I hope I answered it.
Gilbert, if I could comment on the reflection on the unconditioned, there's a little bit of a Theravada approach that is very visible here, where it says that there's this unborn, unoriginated, uncreated, and unformed, and then versus the born, originated, created, and the formed, and how if you want freedom from this, you could get freedom from the born, originated, created, and formed, because there is the unborn, etc. So a Chan question to ask would be then, where is this born, originated, created, and formed? Where is that appearing? Is it separate from the unborn, unoriginated, uncreated, and unformed? So there's that dichotomy that is simpler to understand and maybe simpler to practice from the Theravada perspective, but the Mahayana perspective is more nuanced and does not even accept that distinction.
Well, that is precisely the clarifications in the Mahayana doctrine that sought to kind of patch those types of ways of looking at things where things appear to be dualistic, and that certainly that kind of an analysis would be dualistic. And so it moves towards the Tathagata, the thusness of all things, or Tathagata, so we say thus come one or thus gone one, meaning the same thing. It is the Ekayana principle of mind that where that's why I emphasize there's not even the one, because to say there's the one, you would distinguish it from the many. If you look at the studies of the Sanskrit, they always talk about all sorts of different citas, citta, mind states, but it's not. But the Buddha mind is not a mind state. It's not an almasita. It is a it is beyond description, beyond any kind of a dualistic nature. There's just this thusness, and that's what the Mahayanists chose to try to emphasize, that it didn't need to say, oh, this is phenomenal and this is the absolute. And that's, again, goes back to what Nagarjuna chose to say, well, which one is real or which one's there. That's why the Mahayana said, no, they're not real. Neither one is real. They're fundamentally empty. And therein lied the problem of this emptiness being misunderstood as being more nihilistic. And then the correction to that was in the Heart Sutra of the embodiment of compassion in this Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, so that one could see that there was something in the works beyond just simply this kind of a nihilistic way of looking at things and saying, oh, well, it's empty. It's just an empty room. But that was, again, going back to what Villamakritti was demonstrating, was this emptiness is the emptiness there of mind, yet there is the karuna, the caring for all sentient beings, and in a way in which was, let's say, devoid of appearances, but still actively, dynamically functioning within the samsaric world. It doesn't need to say to abandon the samsara. Quite so. It's not saying this is real. It's saying this is a dream world, but this is where where mind, of course, mind is can be in the dream world. It is the dreamer. And so it's pointing directly to the function of mind. And this is this nuance that of mind that goes beyond the constructs of the Theravada. And that's why when I was looking at this and studying this many years ago, I was in awe of the Mahayana development of this, that this was, as you say, is subtle, but there is an importance to it that's there. It makes sense of everything in terms of how the pieces fit together. And so that's something that I think you should kind of like probe even deeper and deeper, because to you got a little peek of this, and that's important. These are like these little realizations that enable a person to, if you can mind that. It's like somebody that's in this mine and they're hitting and hitting and hitting. They see a little flake of gold or a little jewel, and then they know, okay, if I dig in this area, there may be more. So now you know where to dig. And so digging with this one, you just dig until the vein runs out, but you just take it. Or I would say it's just like surfing, if you ride a wave, you just ride it and ride it and ride it until it's no longer there, and then you go out and you catch another one. But you can ride this wave of insight, and you can take a look at it. I mean, because it's very interesting. There is doctrinally a difference between Theravada and Mahayana. I'm not going to say Mahayana trumps Theravada. It's just a way how we approach it in terms of that. And in terms of me looking at it, to me, it makes sense. The Heart Sutra is pivotal in terms of that, because it represents, and that's why Manjusri has the Prajnaparamita Sutra, that hey, take a look at this. If you like the stuff from before, look at the Prajnaparamita Sutra, because that's a quantum shift. Okay, so very good. The questions today were excellent. I mean, just really excellent, and that's why I wanted to work on this right view, because it is something that to a lot of you who are new, really have not had any primer on it. And to those who have been here for a while, it's kind of a recalibration of what you're doing here. Okay. And by the questions that are coming up, I think that's something that definitely we're going in the right direction with that. So I know it's late for you. Thank you all for listening in, and stay there and keep practicing. Each step that you're here and you're doing is in the right direction. And never doubt that. Never doubt that. I don't make this stuff up. I study very hard, and I study sincerely so that I can provide you something that is of importance for you to progress in your practice. Okay. So Amitofo. We'll see you next week. Stay safe. Is Letty still here?
Thank you.
Take care, Letty. So I know she had the COVID, so hopefully not too many of you have COVID right